Hello my lovelies, and welcome to today's video in which I am wrapping up the final books that I read during September. I actually only have one book that I finished off, and I've done a dedicated review already that's already up on the channel. So to be honest, this is in large gonna be a TBR. So I'm very briefly going to whisk you through what that book was, direct you to that video, and then get on with current reads and TBR for October. So the last book I managed to finish up during September was The Bleeding by Joanna Gustafsson. This was a translated fiction by David Warner, if I remember correctly, and I absolutely adored it. It was one of the books that was on my 5-star summer predictions, and it was definitely 5 stars. If you want to know any more about that, it is already up on the channel. It was a couple of videos I think prior to this one, and yeah, it was phenomenal. Very dark, sort of mystery, occult, spanning across 3 eras, and it was phenomenal. Very much enjoyed it. I'm currently reading 2 books at the moment. One of them is One Last Stop. I forget the author's name, but I am having so much fun with that. That one I'm reading purely via audiobook on my library app. And we are following August, who has recently moved into the area. She keeps seeing this girl on the train, and she's quite quickly besotted with her and wants to know kind of her deal. Why is she always there on the train, no matter what train route she gets? It's always her there, no matter the time of day. And it's got a bit of time travel elements, kind of magical queer romance. It is phenomenal. I am really loving that one so far. Sticking to the queer romance as well, I am currently reading Radical Love by Neil Blackmore. This one is historical fiction set in 1800s London, and it's based off of a true story. We are following John Church, who is a priest. However, he has kind of a double life. By day, he is doing, your typical stuff in the church, in the community, but by night he's going to what is called molly houses, and he is basically quite big in the gay scene, officiating what started as fake weddings between men and queens. There's a lot of mention of the drag queens of this era really loving this fake wedding with the normal men. It's how they term it. I'm just using the terminology in this book, and let me tell you, it's astounding. Some of these things I had to look up because I was like, what does that mean? All the slurs that they have in here, I'd never had heard of before. So it is very eye-opening, awakening in that regard. But yeah, so he is kind of officiating these weddings, and obviously very, very illegal, especially of the time. So it's very secretive. They've got passwords and codes to be able to get into these houses. But yeah, it's absolutely eye-opening. He also becomes quite enamored with a young black man who frequents his church, and he is called Ned, which again adds this layer of taboo and a radical love, because we've got the same-sex romance and the interracial romance as well. But yeah, I am really enjoying this. I mean, the content's quite dark with how they harm bodies because they're different and they don't believe in the love that they have, but the storytelling and the way it's on the page and being inside John's head is absolutely fascinating. So yeah, I am very much enjoying this one. I'm about almost halfway through. I've just got to part 2 of the book. I'm not too sure how many parts there are in this, but this one I'm doing physical book from the library plus my Audible audio book as well. So yeah. And as for the rest of the books that I want to get through during October, I've got a stack here. This is kind of what I see to hand, but I definitely have a couple of books that are ebooks, some e-arcs as well, a couple of books that are on my radar in the stack behind me that would definitely fit the kind of spooky months and the burr season, I guess you could say. But just to kind of minimize my stack of library books, as well as kind of just not have an overwhelming amount in front of me in terms of ticking off a list, I have a couple here to just kind of keep me on track. So the first one up is Jennifer Killick's Read, Scream and Repeat. This is actually a selection of 13 short stories, and they are edited by Jennifer Killick, who did the Crater Lake series. I think there's only 2 books of them out right now, and I have read them over the last couple of months and talked about them in various vlogs and wrap-ups. So this one is a selection of short stories including Arcade Game Zombies, Hunting You in the Real World, Graveyard Ghost on a Mission, Flesh-Eating Aliens Lurking in the Darkness, and a Cursed Pond that wants to drag you down into its depths. Something a bit more cozy but very much of the season, and I believe the sequel's just come out, is Laurie Gilmore's The Pumpkin Spice Cafe. I actually have never once watched the Gilmore Girls, and in my head I'm assuming that's who it is, right? I can't really see exactly what it says on the inside, but I swear Laura Lee is a character within the show, right? Is she a real person? She's acted by a real person, but Laurie Gilmore doesn't exist, right? Can someone tell me? I really didn't grow up watching the Gilmore Girls, so I have no idea. I just thought this sounds straight up my street and it sounds really sweet. And I've been reading like various different kinds of romances and things like that, so this sounded like something that I would enjoy within that niche. I went to see what the first page was like, and I noticed there's a really cool playlist, but also the chapter says, it begins with, Jeannie Ellis had never killed a man before, but tonight might be the night. Desperate times and all. I love that already. So we are following Jeannie, whose aunt gifts her the beloved Pumpkin Spice Cafe in a small town of Dream Harbour. Jeannie jumps at the chance for a fresh start away from a very dull desk job. Logan is a local farmer who avoids Dream Harbour's gossip at all costs, but Jeannie's arrival disrupts Logan's routine and he wants nothing to do with the irritatingly upbeat new girl, except that he finds himself inexplicably drawn to her. Will Jeannie's happy-go-lucky attitude win over the grumpy but gorgeous Logan, or has this city girl found the one person in town who won't fall for her charm or her pumpkin spice lattes? This sounds absolutely darling. I think I'm really going to love it. Next up, one that I have been so excited and almost kind of holding since it released and since we got it in the library. It's Young Gothic by M.A. Bennett. It says the monsters aren't just in their heads. And I love that the back has this kind of like standout bit that says, you've heard of Frankenstein's monster, you've heard of Dracula, but have you heard of the Villa Diodati? So we have 4 strangers who are invited to spend an unforgettable summer at the birthplace of all things Gothic, which is the Villa Diodati, which is a beautiful isolated lakeside residence. But of course it is hiding a dark heart. Our 4 strangers, Eve, Griffin, Hal and Wren, quickly get roped in together, completely out of their depth when they are set to face their worst fears. And when one of the villa's guests turns up dead, each of them will become a suspect in the gruesome murder. It definitely gives whodunit vibes, very gothic. And the fact that it's set during the summer probably would have been perfect. I think it came out during the summer. So I love that it's kind of giving me the idea of what I'd imagine Southern Gothic to be, with the heat and all of that, like the heavy atmosphere mixed with your typical Gothic elements. But I really wanted to hold off to read it for the end of the year, so that's what I am planning to do, and I hope I adore it. The next one, I've also got the audio book for this on Audible so I can read alongside. This is Jacqueline Roy's The Gosling Girl, and so we're following our main character who has just come out of prison after doing time for wrongly, rightly, we don't actually know at this point, being imprisoned for I think the kidnap and murder of a young girl who was under her care. She was like her babysitter. She's now come back out of prison and has found herself in a predicament. Another young girl close to her has been found dead, and so of course questions lead towards her. It seems like it's going to be talking about racial identity, stereotyping and that kind of dynamic, as we've got a young black woman that has been suspected for the murder and the kidnapping of the white little girl. So it seems like that's an emphasis of the story, and I'm intrigued to see how that's going to be handled within the telling of the narrative. Our detective that's on the case is kind of up against a lot as well. She is a black woman and is often ostracized by her family and peers for kind of working against them in a way. So this case is particularly a difficult one, and I think it's going to be a very interesting and poignant conversation to have. So hopefully it's handled well. I am super intrigued by this one. Okay, so we're coming up to the last 2 books that I have in my mind for like a loose October TBR. The first one is a new to me one. Well, the last 2 books actually are new to my collection. This is a beautiful edition of Terry Pratchett's Weird Sisters. This is the Witches collection from the Discworld series. I've been wanting to read a Terry Pratchett novel for the longest time, and a couple of my colleagues have been making their way through his books recently, and they said they were starting with the Witches series. I'm definitely behind in their little buddy read, but I thought, you know what, yeah, that's where I'm going to start, because that sounds like the most interesting to me. That and the Death series. Is it Mort, the Mort series? But yeah, I got so overwhelmed with the overlap and where to really start, but I know there's so many different ways to read his books and they all intertwine and overlap anyway, so yeah, it kind of just makes sense in my head now to just start with the collection that sounds the most interesting to me, and that of course is the Witches one, starting with the Weird Sisters. This is published by Orion Books, and this is absolutely stunning. I'm just looking at it in all its glory. I love the color scheme, and honestly I don't really know a whole deal about it, so I'm pretty much going to be going into this knowing very little. It literally on the back just says, when shall we 3 meet again? Well, I can do next Tuesday. So I know it's going to have this trademark humour that everyone says that Terry Pratchett books has, and I'm looking forward to trying them out. And lastly, again, another new book into my collection. I actually did a unboxing for Black Crow PR, who sent a beautiful PR box with this book and some goodies my way recently. The unboxing is over on my Instagram and on my TikTok if you'd like to check out all the other goodies that I got in there. But it is for a new release coming out on the 12th of November, and this is called Sleeping Worlds Have No Memory by Yaroslav Borosakov. I hope I've pronounced his name correctly. I do apologise if not. On the back it says, a man exiled for his conscience, 2 kingdoms locked in a cold war. It sounds really airy, like it's going to be kind of strange fiction, so I'm really intrigued to see how this develops. I have the press release here, and I can tell you a little bit more about it in depth. Someone has described it as a slipstream between science fiction and fantasy, which is so cool. So we have a man exiled for his conscience, 2 kingdoms locked in a cold war. Refusing the Queen's orders to gas a crowd of protesters, Minister Shay Ashcroft is banished to the border to oversee construction of the biggest anti-airship tower in history. However, the use of technology brought by refugees makes the tower volatile and dangerous, leaving Shay no choice but to fight the local hierarchy to ensure the construction succeeds and to claim his own life. He must survive an assassination attempt, confront his inner demons, and encounter an ancient legend and a portal to a dead world, all the while staying true to his own principles and sanity. Fighting memories and hallucinations, Shay starts to question everything. This is described as a thought-provoking meditation on the human condition. It's a compelling exploration of memory and its profound impact on our identities and relationships. From the author that I think is quite important to highlight, and he says, a major theme of the book is how disinformation and propaganda can be used to justify violence, and how turning a blind eye to evil can lead people to accept atrocities. I was able to witness all of this firsthand, having spent the first 21 years of my life in Russia and absorbing the recent events unfiltered and in my native tongue. Sleeping worlds aren't only devoid of memories, they're also oblivious to the pain of others. And that hits. That is so thought-provoking and just mind-blowing, to be quite honest. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to diving into this during October. That is it, my friends. Those are the books that I'm planning to read during October. Obviously, I've got a couple of books that I want to finish up first, as well as some books I want to start and finish throughout the month. That seems very fitting for the spooky season and the colder winter nights. As always, I would love your input. Let me know what you've been reading during September, any recommendations you want to send my way, what you're planning to read during October. And for now, I shall thank you again and catch you in another video soon. Bye!